With the outbreak of the pandemic, each one of us was trying to come to terms with a lot many things, adjusting to the new normal way of life. The top priority, as I think, was maintaining our sanity. The next topic for today's talk is nurturing positive mental health during difficult times. Our next speaker is joining us all the way from Austria, and it's an immense pleasure and honor to have her with us, Dr. Monica Corbett. Dr. Monica is a psychotherapist, systematic family therapist, life and social counselor, mediator from Austria. She has an extensive work experience in her field nationally and internationally. She is also a lecturer at Sigmund Freud University, International Department Psychotherapy, and Faculty of Law and other institutes such as ARGE Buildings Management, Austria, Mediation Training Institute, IAMS, Austria, Italy. She also conducts coaching of individuals in organizations and companies. She holds a PhD, MA, BA, PTH. I request Dr. Monica Corbett to enlighten our audience about nurturing positive mental health during difficult times.
Thank you. Thank you for this kind introduction. The entire world has been turned upside down. How to tackle these challenges in a healthy way for ourselves and others. How to nurture positive mental health during difficult times. That's the question. This is about what I'm honored to share with you, my experiences, including hard times too. I had the privilege to learn a lot from life and my life coach and others, among them Gloria de Souza, and I'm heartfelt grateful for it. Many deep thanks to Mrs. Arati Savour, CEO of Larissa Ascher, for inviting me, and your team for all your engagement to make this happen. So, dear all of you and educators around the globe, and all of you who are interested in mental health in these difficult times. In my understanding, mental health is a multidimensional process. There are important bio, psycho, social, cultural elements, and for whom it may be relevant, spiritual resources too. And a lot is demanded from all of us in this global crisis. So rules and regulations everywhere, reduced freedom on many levels, for instance, imposed home office while having to cope with our own kids who are expressing sometimes in a demanding way their needs, and social distancing while the wish to hug a friend might grow as a personal need. And the list is long with further regulations we all experienced. As there is very little we can do to change the outside conditions, yet there is a lot we can do to contribute to our inner well-being and our inner feeling, to feel ourselves healthier, happier, and thus strengthen our immune system in a holistic way. On the one hand, there are the difficulties, they are obvious, and on the other hand, it's a chance, also as previous speakers mentioned. So all it contributes to be mentally healthier and has an impact on our physical conditions too. Well, some of you might say that's easy said, but how to put it into practice? So many of you do provide quality education, and a lot is demanded from you every single day to get along with the challenges such as the new digital teaching, including its technical pitfalls, transact the sessions in an interesting way, and you know it all. Enriching kids and helping them to achieve their goals, provide joyful learning, which is important, while our own batteries might run empty. So one might feel challenged, burned out, anxious, suffer from sleeplessness, or experience other disturbing emotions, which take away a lot of energy. And how to overcome now these and to reload their own batteries. Here are some ideas to improve mental health. So first of all, training our mind. meaning taking control over our thinking in the first place, and to be quick in interrupting negative thinking patterns. For instance, as soon as one is aware that an unconstructive thought tries to pull you down, switch your thoughts to something nice, something empowering, joyful, just as if you would switch a TV channel or YouTube channel to which you like more. So maybe after a second, another negative thought appears, just do it again. There are some further actions we can do to nurture mental health. So not to hypnotize ourselves with the problem or the crisis, such as thinking again and again the same depressing thoughts. Continuing normal life as far as possible. To socialize as far as possible. Try to keep contact with others, asking for support. Maybe with our initiative, you do something constructive for one other person too. And especially to reduce more and more the stress in daily life, the tiny little things, because stress is one of the main enemies of mental health. The little things, for instance, before starting or continuing to complete a task, whatever it might be, take a moment for yourself, even if it's just a few seconds, stand still before moving on. To focus on the very presence, to be present, allowing oneself to listen to our inner self, to focus on our body, on the body sensations. Our body tells us a lot if you listen. In particular on our breath, for instance, several times a day, taking a moment, a deep breath, exhaling as much as possible. Then feel how fresh air fills the lungs and exhale again as deep as you can. And it might sound simple, yes. Just try it and see it for yourself. So practicing this, we can raise our body awareness while at the same time increasing our mental and social awareness. So choosing these tiny little things in daily life to focus on, do whatever makes you feel better, looking a nice picture, a flower, at the sky, go for a walk, or something else you like. Thinking of an encouraging moment with a friend, a comforting word of someone, a child's smile. So doing so, we take away the space that our fears, our worries, our depressing thoughts try to occupy in our mind. And we strengthen our biopsychosocial immune system and hence our mental health. Steve DeShazer, an American therapist, puts it in these words: energy flows where attention goes. Then let intuition be your guide, as emphasized Mr. Angelo Antonio Ferrandina, director of the Training Institution and Mediation in Austria. He says that more attention needs to be given to intuition and its resources in education and in healthcare. In 2002, at the World Congress of Psychotherapy in Vienna, he mentions not to ignore the dangers, but to learn to deal with the obstacles, making the best out of them in a positive way. So research in resilience shows that even in most adverse situations, it is possible to remain calm with inner balance and even feel well. Resilience is the ability of a person to use difficult situations in his or her life for personal development by including both personal and social researches. There are scientists like Emmy Werner and Ruth Smith and others who have proven in their research that children who have been born in difficult environments can develop strong trust in their personal perception too. They are able to overcome unhealthy socialization and develop their potential and mental health, sometimes in an unbelievable way. So the focus shifts from suffering and pathology to looking for chances and opportunities. Another relevant element in nurturing mental health is to accept what we can't change. This does not mean at all to consent to unrighteousness, just accepting and admitting our personal limits. There is no shaming doing so. On the contrary, it's professional and healthy, and none of us can fix it all. In psychotherapy, acceptance is a relevant factor prior to change. That's interesting, and I can just say that's what the practice shows. Accepting reduces suffering, even if the outer circumstances may remain the same. By accepting we cannot influence, by accepting what we cannot influence, we gain energy and time instead of losing it by being angry, frustrated, depressed, etc. All of us know how this works, I guess. In this way, there is more energy left, which can be invested in searching for creative options instead of losing it in unhealthy thinking patterns, attitudes, and behavior. Then overcoming loneliness by strengthening our social relations. This might sound quite provocative in times of social distancing, but even now it's feasible. How? It could be a short telephone call, a video call, a short email, which makes us feel better. So the motto is getting active, not waiting that someone will call first or will write first, but just to do the first step. Because being close to someone in a physical way, if it is harmonious, it's a wonderful thing, wonderful. And we can feel connected and emotionally close to others, even if we are not in the same physical space. Best proof for that are distance relationships. So helping others can make us feel better too, as long as we don't ignore our own needs. That's important. And for whom it's not egoistic, just to emphasize. And for whom it feels mediation, for whom it feels right, mediation or yoga or similar might contribute to mental health too. So there's a scientific study I led interviewing internationally successfully social entrepreneurs. One of them was Mrs. Gloria de Sousa, who showed, and this study showed the main elements for their overcoming of adversities. All of them I interviewed, and they were quite some change makers, all of them. They faced extremely difficult times, which they overcame by following their feelings and convictions in the first place, their fundamental beliefs, that new things can develop and support can be found. Support is an important ingredient too. Further entrusting their perception and intuition, and never losing a sense of gratitude. Here, if someone is interested, there is also a lot in this. I published this this book, Reaching Your Goal. Now I see that because of the background, you can't see the book. So its name is Reaching Your Goal, and it's also online. You can see it also online. And so these principles, of course, do work not only with adults, but with children too, as well. And it's up to us who have responsibilities, professions, roles, to pass it on to others, what hopefully we try to practice ourselves for ourselves, and to be able to provide it to others. Meaning in particular to the children who are facing this new normal, learning by digital means, sometimes isolated and being in depression circumstances. So many sensations mentioned before are experienced, of course, by children too. So loneliness, missing of privacy, in particular in periods of lockdown, anxieties, being overwhelmed, feeling overloaded. So we could ask ourselves, what would I need if I put myself into the shoes of a kid who is in this new normal? And on the level of communication, inclusion, support, feedback. So one principle we can also forward is to find a friend and to be a friend to someone, to these children, which there's an experiment in the United States, which where it turns out that it works very well. And as my life coach puts it, the desire to receive from others the right kind of respect which we are giving them in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica. It was really great to get all those tips how to keep ourselves, our mind in proper place during this pandemic. And I'm sure you are also aware that Parisarasha had been working in the field of mental health with its positive parenting and child helpline, which is now extended for COVID relief also. And we do conduct these regular workshops and free workshops and free seminars on mental health, so that we can reach out to many more people and we can educate them that along with your physical health, even mental health is equally important. And we have a toll-free helpline where morning 9 to night 9 o'clock our lines are open. We have a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist on board who are helping our children, our parents, and anybody from the family who needs that support. It's absolutely free of cost. So thank you so much, Dr. Monica. It was indeed a great pleasure having you over here. And let's hope that we meet soon personally, like face to face, not
Yes.
on virtual platform, but we really had a great time together in Vienna. So thank you so much. And here's a token of gratitude from all of us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor, and thank you also for all the engagement you put in to make this summit, this highly interesting summit happen. Thank you, Arati.
Thank you.
And all of your team.
Yeah, so Dr. Monica Corbett, thank you for being with us on this seminar. And my takeaway from what tips and pointers that you gave us is energy flows where attention goes.